The emergency board meeting was called for 6 a.m. sharp, but automotive CEO James Morrison had been awake since 3, staring at the engineering reports that would change everything. His hands trembled as he read the final analysis, confirming what he'd hoped was just a technical glitch. 5 million vehicles, potentially fatal brake failures, immediate recall required. The words blurred on the page as James realized that signing this document would not only cost his company $12 billion, but potentially destroy the automotive empire his grandfather had built from nothing. His phone buzzed with another text from his daughter Sarah, the chief safety engineer who had discovered the defect. "Dad, we can't wait any longer. 3 accidents already confirmed. People are dying." What James didn't know was that his trusted VP of engineering, Michael Chen, had been aware of this brake defect for 18 months and had been systematically covering it up while profiting from insider trading. The security cameras in his office were recording every moment of his internal struggle between protecting his company's profits and saving innocent lives. This was the day that would define his legacy forever. If this story resonates with you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. Morrison Automotive Headquarters stood as a gleaming testament to American manufacturing excellence, its 60-story glass tower dominating the Detroit skyline, where 4 generations of the Morrison family had built one of the world's most successful automotive companies. The corporate empire that James Morrison now controlled employed over 400,000 people worldwide, manufacturing vehicles in 37 countries while generating annual revenues exceeding $200 billion through innovative engineering and aggressive market expansion. James Morrison sat alone in his corner office on the 60th floor, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered panoramic views of the Motor City and the sprawling manufacturing complexes that represented his family's century-long commitment to automotive innovation and industrial leadership. At 58 years old, James had inherited not just corporate control, but also the weight of family legacy and shareholder expectations that demanded continued growth and profitability in increasingly competitive global markets. The Morrison family's automotive dynasty had begun with his great-grandfather, Thomas Morrison, who had founded the company in 1923 with revolutionary assembly line innovations that competed directly with Henry Ford while establishing Detroit as America's automotive capital. Each generation had contributed technological breakthroughs and business expansion that transformed a small regional manufacturer into a global powerhouse that competed with Toyota, Volkswagen, and General Motors for market dominance worldwide. James's grandfather, William Morrison, had survived the Great Depression through strategic partnerships and innovative financing while expanding international operations that established Morrison Automotive as America's first truly global car manufacturer. His father, Robert Morrison, had revolutionized safety engineering and environmental standards during the 1970s, while maintaining profitability through oil crises and foreign competition that destroyed many American manufacturers. The corporate headquarters reflected the company's technological sophistication and commitment to innovation, featuring research and development facilities that employed thousands of engineers and designers working on electric vehicles, autonomous driving systems, and advanced safety technologies that represented the future of global transportation. The building also housed the world's most advanced automotive testing facilities and crash simulation laboratories that had pioneered safety standards adopted by regulatory agencies worldwide. But on this particular Monday morning in October, James faced the greatest crisis in Morrison Automotive's 100-year history, as engineering reports documented systematic brake failures in the company's most popular vehicle line that had been sold worldwide for the past 3 years. The technical analysis revealed manufacturing defects that could cause complete brake system failures during normal driving conditions, creating potentially fatal accidents that endangered millions of drivers and passengers globally. The brake defect affected Morrison's best-selling Phoenix sedan and SUV models that had been marketed as the safest vehicles in automotive history, while incorporating advanced braking technologies that the company had promoted as revolutionary safety innovations. Over 5 million vehicles had been sold worldwide, with concentrations in major markets, including the United States, Europe, Asia, and Latin America, where Morrison Automotive had established dominant market positions. James's daughter, Sarah Morrison, served as the company's chief safety engineer, following family tradition, while bringing advanced degrees from MIT and Stanford that qualified her to lead Morrison Automotive's safety research and regulatory compliance efforts. Her discovery of the brake defects had resulted from routine safety audits that she had personally overseen, despite pressure from other executives to reduce testing expenses and accelerate vehicle production schedules. Sarah's engineering team had identified the brake failures through comprehensive testing protocols that exceeded industry standards, while analyzing real-world performance data from vehicles in operation worldwide. Her investigation had revealed that manufacturing shortcuts implemented to reduce costs had compromised critical safety systems, while creating defects that became more dangerous as vehicles accumulated mileage and brake components experienced normal wear and stress. The technical reports that James studied in his office documented 3 specific accidents that had already been linked to the brake defects, including 2 fatalities and multiple serious injuries that established clear patterns of failure under normal driving conditions. The engineering analysis predicted exponential increases in failure rates as affected vehicles aged, potentially causing hundreds or thousands of additional accidents unless immediate corrective action was implemented. Michael Chen, Morrison Automotive's Vice President of Engineering, had been responsible for overseeing the manufacturing processes that had created the brake defects, while maintaining corporate policies that prioritized cost reduction and production efficiency over comprehensive safety testing and quality control measures. His engineering background included advanced degrees from prestigious universities and decades of experience in automotive manufacturing and safety systems design. But unknown to James or Sarah, Michael had been aware of the brake defects for 18 months, while deliberately concealing the safety problems to protect his own career advancement and financial interests that depended on meeting production targets and cost reduction goals that had been established by corporate management and board oversight. Michael's cover-up had involved falsifying safety test results, suppressing engineering reports that documented brake failures, and intimidating subordinate engineers who attempted to report safety concerns through normal corporate channels and regulatory compliance procedures. His actions had violated federal safety regulations and corporate governance standards, while creating criminal liability for fraud and reckless endangerment. The financial implications of the brake defect were staggering, as preliminary estimates suggested that a complete recall would cost Morrison Automotive over $12 billion in direct expenses, while potentially causing additional losses through legal liability, regulatory penalties, and market share erosion that could threaten the company's long-term viability and competitive position. The recall expenses would include manufacturing and installing replacement brake components for over 5 million vehicles worldwide, establishing service centers and technical support systems to manage the massive logistical challenges, and providing compensation for customers and dealers who would experience significant inconvenience and financial losses during the repair process. Beyond direct recall costs, Morrison Automotive faced potential legal liability for accidents and injuries that had been caused by the brake defects, while regulatory agencies in multiple countries were likely to impose substantial penalties for safety violations and inadequate oversight of manufacturing quality and testing procedures that had failed to detect the problems before vehicles were sold to consumers. The stock market implications were equally severe, as Morrison Automotive's share price was likely to collapse when the recall was announced, eliminating billions of dollars in market capitalization while affecting pension funds, mutual funds, and individual investors who depended on the company's financial performance and dividend payments for retirement security and investment returns. James understood that his decision about how to handle the brake defects would determine not only Morrison Automotive's future, but also his personal legacy as the fourth-generation leader of a family business that had survived every previous crisis through ethical leadership and commitment to customer safety that had distinguished the company from competitors throughout its history. The weight of family tradition and corporate responsibility created enormous pressure as James considered the consequences of different response strategies, while understanding that delay could result in additional accidents and deaths that would create moral responsibility for preventable tragedies that violated everything his family had built over 4 generations of automotive leadership. His personal phone buzzed with text messages from Sarah that became increasingly urgent as she waited for his decision about whether to proceed with the immediate recall that her engineering analysis had recommended as the only responsible response to clear evidence of potentially fatal safety defects. "Dad, we have confirmation of 3 more brake failures overnight. Phoenix sedans in California, Texas, and Florida. All involved emergency room visits. We cannot wait any longer for corporate approval. People are literally dying while we debate costs and procedures." The message crystallized James's understanding that the brake defect crisis had moved beyond corporate management challenges to become immediate life and death decisions that required moral leadership rather than business calculations about costs and competitive positioning that had guided previous corporate challenges. As James prepared for the emergency board meeting that would determine Morrison Automotive's response to the crisis, he understood that his decision would be recorded not only in corporate history, but also in the personal accounts of families who had been affected by brake failures and would judge his leadership based on whether he prioritized profits or human safety. The Morrison Automotive boardroom occupied the entire 59th floor of corporate headquarters, featuring a custom mahogany conference table that could accommodate 30 directors, while panoramic windows provided views of Detroit's automotive district, where the company's manufacturing operations continued around-the-clock production of vehicles that contained the potentially fatal brake defects. James entered the boardroom at precisely 6 a.m. to find 12 board members already assembled, including independent directors who represented major institutional shareholders, family members who controlled Morrison Family Trust assets, and executives whose careers and compensation depended on maintaining corporate profitability and stock price performance that would be devastated by a massive recall. Board Chairman Robert Sterling served as lead independent director while representing pension funds and investment managers that controlled over 40% of Morrison Automotive's outstanding shares. His background included decades of experience in corporate crisis management and automotive industry leadership that provided expertise in navigating complex regulatory and financial challenges. "James, we've reviewed the preliminary engineering reports, and we need to understand the full scope of potential liability before making any decisions about recalls or public disclosure," Sterling announced, while displaying financial projections that estimated recall costs and their impact on quarterly earnings and annual profitability targets. The board's immediate focus on financial implications rather than safety concerns reflected shareholder pressure and fiduciary obligations that prioritized investor returns, while corporate governance standards required careful analysis of costs and benefits before implementing expensive corrective measures that could affect competitive positioning and market performance. Family board members included James's uncle David Morrison and his cousin Elizabeth Morrison Taylor, who represented significant family trust holdings while maintaining emotional connections to company tradition and reputation that complicated purely financial decision-making processes about recalls and safety responses. James, our family has built this company's reputation on safety and quality for 4 generations, David said, while acknowledging the moral dimensions of the crisis. But we also have obligations to employees and shareholders who depend on financial stability and responsible management of corporate resources and competitive positioning. The tension between family values and financial responsibilities created additional complexity as board members struggled to balance moral obligations to customer safety against fiduciary duties to shareholders and stakeholders who would suffer significant financial losses from comprehensive recalls and their impact on market capitalization and competitive strength. Michael Chen's presentation to the board systematically minimized the severity of brake defects while proposing alternative responses that would reduce costs and limit legal liability through technical modifications and enhanced customer communications rather than comprehensive recalls that would acknowledge systematic safety failures and manufacturing defects. The engineering analysis suggests that brake failures are limited to specific driving conditions and vehicle configurations that affect a small percentage of Phoenix models, Michael explained, while displaying charts that downplayed accident rates and suggested that customer education and minor technical adjustments could address safety concerns without massive recall expenses. His presentation deliberately concealed information about the systematic nature of manufacturing defects while providing false reassurances about accident rates and failure patterns that contradicted Sarah's engineering analysis and safety testing results that had documented widespread problems requiring immediate corrective action. Sarah's presentation directly contradicted Michael's analysis while providing comprehensive evidence of systematic brake failures that posed immediate dangers to millions of drivers worldwide and required emergency recalls to prevent additional accidents and fatalities that would create enormous moral and legal liability. The brake defect affects core manufacturing processes that were implemented across all Phoenix production lines for the past 3 years, Sarah explained, while displaying technical diagrams and failure analysis that documented the systematic nature of safety problems. Delay in implementing recalls will result in exponential increases in accident rates and fatalities, as vehicles age and brake components experience additional stress and deterioration. Her analysis included projections that estimated hundreds or thousands of potential deaths if recalls were delayed, while comprehensive data from existing accidents demonstrated clear patterns of brake failure under normal driving conditions that endangered all drivers, regardless of their experience levels or driving habits. The conflicting presentations from Michael and Sarah created confusion among board members who lacked technical expertise to evaluate competing claims about engineering defects while facing enormous pressure to make decisions that would affect billions of dollars in corporate value and millions of customers' safety worldwide. Independent director, Dr. Patricia Williams, brought automotive engineering expertise from her previous career at Ford Motor Company, while representing institutional investors who demanded evidence-based decision-making and comprehensive analysis of safety data before implementing expensive recalls or acknowledging systematic manufacturing defects. Sarah, Your safety analysis appears comprehensive and well documented, while Michael's cost reduction proposals lack specific technical solutions for the brake failures you've identified, Dr. Williams observed, while requesting additional information about failure mechanisms and repair procedures that would be required for effective recalls. Her technical questions exposed weaknesses in Michael's analysis, while supporting Sarah's recommendations for immediate recalls based on solid engineering evidence, rather than financial calculations and cost-benefit analysis that ignored moral obligations and regulatory requirements for automotive safety. The board's deliberations were interrupted by urgent communications from Morrison Automotive's legal department and public relations teams, who reported increasing media attention and regulatory inquiries about brake failures, while customer service departments documented growing numbers of safety complaints and accident reports from Phoenix vehicle owners. Corporate attorney Jennifer Martinez reported that federal safety regulators were initiating preliminary investigations into Morrison Automotive's safety testing procedures and quality control measures, while consumer advocacy groups were demanding immediate recalls and congressional hearings about automotive industry safety standards and regulatory oversight. We're receiving inquiries from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, congressional staff members, and investigative journalists who have obtained preliminary accident reports and engineering documents, Martinez explained, while warning about legal liability and regulatory penalties that could result from inadequate responses to documented safety defects. The external pressure from regulators and media organizations complicated internal deliberations, while creating additional urgency for decisions about recalls and public disclosure that would affect Morrison Automotive's legal exposure and public reputation, in addition to financial costs and competitive positioning. Public Relations Director David Park reported that social media platforms and automotive news websites were beginning to document Phoenix brake failures, while customer advocacy groups were organizing boycotts and protests that could affect sales and market share even before official recalls were announced. Twitter and Facebook posts about Phoenix brake failures are increasing exponentially, while automotive blogs and consumer websites are publishing detailed accounts of accidents and near misses that establish clear patterns of systematic defects. Park warned, while displaying social media monitoring data that showed growing public awareness and concern. The viral nature of social media communications meant that Morrison Automotive's crisis was rapidly becoming public knowledge, regardless of official corporate responses, while customer confidence was eroding through grassroots information sharing and advocacy that bypassed traditional media and corporate communications channels. James recognized that board deliberations were becoming academic exercises as external forces and public awareness created momentum for recalls that would occur through regulatory mandates and market pressure, even if Morrison Automotive attempted to minimize or delay official acknowledgement of safety defects and manufacturing problems. The realization that external control was inevitable focused board discussions on damage control and crisis management rather than whether to implement recalls, while competing priorities of safety, legal compliance, financial protection, and reputation management required strategic coordination rather than simple cost-benefit analysis. As morning progressed, and additional accident reports confirmed Sarah's safety analysis while contradicting Michael's reassurances about limited defects and manageable risks. Board consensus emerged around implementing immediate recalls while focusing on execution strategies that would minimize costs and legal liability. We need to authorize comprehensive recalls while ensuring that our response demonstrates corporate responsibility and commitment to customer safety, Sterling concluded, while acknowledging that financial costs were secondary to legal compliance and moral obligations that defined Morrison Automotive's corporate values and family tradition. The board's authorization of recalls represented victory for Sarah's safety advocacy while creating enormous challenges for James's leadership as he faced the task of implementing the most expensive and complex recall in automotive industry history while preserving Morrison Automotive's competitive position and financial viability. As Morrison Automotive's recall implementation team began coordinating the massive logistical challenges of servicing 5 million vehicles worldwide, Sarah's continued investigation into the brake defects uncovered evidence that Michael Chen had been systematically concealing safety problems while engaging in securities fraud that had generated millions of dollars in personal profits. Sarah's forensic analysis of engineering records and safety testing data revealed that Michael had been aware of brake defect patterns since early manufacturing stages, while deliberately suppressing reports and intimidating subordinate engineers who attempted to document safety concerns through normal corporate channels and regulatory compliance procedures. "Dad, you need to see this immediately," Sarah said while entering James's office with computer files that documented Michael's cover-up activities and financial transactions that constituted clear evidence of criminal fraud and regulatory violations. Michael has been selling Morrison stock while concealing information about brake defects that he knew would cause massive recalls and financial losses. The evidence included email communications, falsified safety test results, and financial trading records that established Michael's criminal intent while demonstrating systematic violations of corporate governance standards and federal securities laws that regulated insider trading and disclosure obligations for corporate executives. Michael's securities fraud had involved selling over $50 million in Morrison Automotive stock during the 18 months when he possessed material, non-public information about brake defects that would inevitably require costly recalls and create substantial financial losses for shareholders and investors who purchased stock without knowledge of concealed safety problems. The trading records showed that Michael had systematically sold stock options and restricted shares, while purchasing put options that would generate profits when Morrison Automotive's stock price collapsed following recall announcements and regulatory actions that he knew were inevitable based on his concealed knowledge of systematic manufacturing defects. Sarah's investigation also revealed that Michael had received payments from offshore accounts that suggested possible involvement with foreign competitors or short-selling hedge funds that could profit from Morrison Automotive's financial difficulties, while his cover-up activities created opportunities for market manipulation and competitive advantage. These banking records show payments totaling over $20 million from accounts linked to Chinese automotive manufacturers and European private equity funds that specialize in distressed automotive investments, Sarah explained, while displaying financial forensics that documented suspicious transactions and international money transfers. The evidence suggested that Michael's cover-up might have been part of broader corporate espionage or competitive intelligence operations designed to damage Morrison Automotive's market position while benefiting foreign manufacturers and investment funds that could profit from the company's difficulties and potential bankruptcy. James's discovery of Michael's betrayal created rage and disbelief as he understood that his trusted engineering executive had not only endangered customer safety but also committed securities fraud and potentially collaborated with foreign competitors to damage Morrison Automotive's competitive position and market value. How long has this been going on, and how many other executives might be involved? James demanded, while realizing that the brake defect crisis had been deliberately concealed and potentially orchestrated to create maximum damage to Morrison Automotive's operations and financial stability. Sarah's continued investigation revealed that Michael had recruited accomplices within the engineering and quality control departments while establishing communication channels with foreign entities that provided ongoing intelligence about Morrison Automotive's operations and strategic planning that could be used for competitive advantage. The scope of internal conspiracy and potential foreign involvement elevated the crisis beyond automotive recalls to include national security concerns about industrial espionage and foreign interference with American manufacturing that threatened both Morrison Automotive and broader domestic automotive industry competitiveness. James immediately contacted federal law enforcement agencies and corporate security consultants while implementing emergency procedures to identify and remove other potential conspirators who might be continuing sabotage activities or providing intelligence to foreign competitors and hostile entities. The FBI investigation that followed confirmed Sarah's findings while identifying additional evidence of systematic corporate espionage and securities fraud that had affected multiple American automotive manufacturers and created national security vulnerabilities that required comprehensive government response and industry-wide security improvements. Mr. Morrison, our investigation indicates that your company has been targeted by sophisticated foreign intelligence operations that recruited insiders to damage American automotive competitiveness while generating profits for hostile entities, FBI agent Maria Rodriguez explained during briefings about the scope of criminal activity and national security implications. The federal investigation revealed that Michael's activities were part of broader campaigns to undermine American automotive technology leadership, while transferring intellectual property and competitive intelligence to foreign manufacturers that sought to dominate global markets through illegal means rather than legitimate innovation and competition. The discovery of foreign involvement and systematic espionage transformed Morrison Automotive's crisis from automotive recalls to national security emergency, while providing context for understanding how brake defects had been concealed and potentially exacerbated to maximize damage to American manufacturing and technological leadership. James's cooperation with federal investigations while implementing recalls and corporate security improvements demonstrated Morrison Automotive's commitment to national security and customer safety while distinguishing legitimate American automotive leadership from foreign manipulation and criminal interference with domestic manufacturing. The revelation that brake defects had been deliberately concealed rather than accidentally overlooked changed public perception of Morrison Automotive's crisis while generating support for the company's recall efforts and recognition of its victimization by foreign intelligence operations and domestic criminal conspirators. Media coverage shifted from criticism of Morrison Automotive's safety failures to documentation of foreign interference and corporate espionage, while highlighting the company's cooperation with law enforcement and commitment to customer safety, despite criminal sabotage and competitive manipulation. Congressional hearings about automotive safety and foreign interference provided platforms for James to explain Morrison Automotive's recall efforts, while advocating for enhanced security measures and regulatory reforms that would protect American automotive manufacturers from future espionage and sabotage activities. The national security dimensions of Morrison Automotive's crisis generated bipartisan political support for the company's recovery, while establishing precedents for protecting American manufacturing from foreign interference and ensuring that recalls and safety measures addressed legitimate defects rather than criminal sabotage. As Morrison Automotive's recall implementation reached full scale, with service centers worldwide working around the clock to repair brake systems, James faced the emotional reality of meeting families whose lives had been forever changed by accidents caused by the defects that Michael Chen had concealed for his personal profit. The Riverside Community Center in Phoenix, Arizona, served as the venue for Morrison Automotive's first public meeting with affected customers, where James would personally address victims and their families while announcing comprehensive compensation programs that went beyond legal requirements to acknowledge moral responsibilities and corporate commitment to customer welfare. Amanda Williams sat in the front row holding photographs of her 16-year-old daughter Jessica, who had been killed when her Phoenix sedan's brakes failed during a routine trip to soccer practice, causing a collision that also injured 3 other teenagers and devastated a community that had trusted Morrison Automotive's safety reputation and marketing promises. Mr. Morrison, your company marketed these vehicles as the safest cars ever built, while your engineers knew that brake systems would fail and kill our children, Amanda said, while displaying Jessica's photograph and medical reports that documented the preventable tragedy. How do you explain taking our money while concealing defects that murdered our daughter? The accusation of corporate murder reflected accurate understanding that Michael's cover-up had transformed preventable safety defects into criminal negligence that caused deaths through deliberate concealment of known dangers while continuing to market vehicles as safe and reliable transportation for families. James's response acknowledged Morrison Automotive's responsibility while explaining the criminal conspiracy that had concealed safety information from company leadership and federal regulators who could have prevented accidents through earlier recalls and safety warnings that Michael had systematically suppressed. Mrs. Williams, Morrison Automotive accepts full responsibility for your daughter's death while recognizing that our company was victimized by criminal employees who betrayed customer safety for personal profit, James replied, while offering condolences and comprehensive support for Jessica's family and community. The acknowledgement of corporate responsibility while explaining criminal interference demonstrated James's commitment to transparency and accountability, while distinguishing Morrison Automotive's legitimate operations from criminal sabotage and foreign manipulation that had caused preventable tragedies. Robert Chen, whose elderly father had suffered permanent brain damage in a Phoenix SUV brake failure, demanded detailed explanations about how Morrison Automotive would prevent similar betrayals while ensuring that compensation reflected the full scope of suffering and loss that resulted from corporate security failures and inadequate oversight of engineering personnel. My father will never recover from his injuries because your company failed to protect customers from criminal employees, Robert said while presenting medical records that documented massive healthcare costs and permanent disabilities that had destroyed his family's financial security and emotional well-being. The medical documentation of brain trauma, spinal injuries, and permanent disabilities provided concrete evidence of human suffering that extended far beyond financial losses to include physical pain, emotional trauma, and family devastation that could never be fully compensated through monetary settlements. James's announcement of unlimited compensation funds and lifetime medical coverage for accident victims demonstrated Morrison Automotive's commitment to supporting affected families while acknowledging that financial assistance could never restore health, eliminate suffering, or bring back loved ones who had died due to preventable safety defects. Morrison Automotive will establish a $5 billion victim compensation fund with no caps on individual payments, while providing lifetime medical coverage and support services for all families affected by these preventable accidents, James announced, while outlining comprehensive assistance programs that exceeded legal requirements. The compensation announcement represented unprecedented corporate responsibility while demonstrating that Morrison Automotive valued human welfare over financial considerations and shareholder profits that had motivated previous corporate crisis responses in the automotive industry. Sarah's presentation to victims' families explained the engineering details of brake defects while documenting how criminal concealment had prevented early detection and corrective action that could have saved lives and prevented injuries through timely recalls and safety warnings. The brake failures resulted from manufacturing shortcuts that we would have corrected immediately if Michael Chen and his conspirators had not falsified safety tests and suppressed engineering reports that documented systematic defects, Sarah explained, while providing technical analysis that established criminal responsibility rather than corporate negligence. Her engineering expertise and family connection to Morrison Automotive provided credibility while demonstrating that legitimate company operations prioritized safety and quality control that had been undermined by criminal interference rather than corporate indifference to customer welfare and regulatory compliance. The victim meetings continued throughout the week as Morrison Automotive executives traveled worldwide to address affected families while implementing compensation programs and support services that acknowledged human suffering and demonstrated corporate commitment to healing and recovery rather than damage control and legal protection. International meetings in European and Asian markets revealed similar patterns of preventable accidents and family trauma, while confirming that criminal concealment had created global dangers that affected millions of customers who had trusted Morrison Automotive's safety reputation and engineering expertise. The London meeting included testimonies from British families whose children had been injured in Phoenix vehicle accidents while driving on country roads where brake failures created collisions with trees and stone walls that caused severe trauma, requiring extended hospitalization and rehabilitation. "Our daughter Emma will never walk again because your brake systems failed on a road she had driven safely for years," testified Margaret Thompson while presenting medical records that documented spinal cord injuries and permanent paralysis that had ended a promising athletic career and created lifetime care requirements. The documentation of young lives permanently altered by preventable accidents created emotional impact that transcended financial considerations while demonstrating the human consequences of corporate security failures and criminal betrayal of customer trust and safety expectations. James's personal meetings with each victim family demonstrated Morrison Automotive's commitment to individual recognition and support, while acknowledging that corporate leaders bore moral responsibility for ensuring that criminal conspirators could not endanger customer safety through systematic deception and security violations. The emotional toll on James and other Morrison Automotive executives was evident as they confronted the human cost of corporate betrayal while understanding that their company's reputation and family legacy had been permanently damaged by criminal employees who had prioritized personal profit over customer safety and corporate integrity. Media coverage of victim meetings generated public sympathy for Morrison Automotive, while highlighting the human cost of corporate espionage and criminal interference with American manufacturing that endangered consumers while benefiting foreign competitors and domestic criminals who exploited security vulnerabilities. The transformation of public perception from corporate criticism to support for victimized families and companies reflected growing understanding that automotive safety defects had resulted from criminal conspiracy rather than corporate negligence, while demonstrating the importance of enhanced security measures and employee oversight. Morrison Automotive's comprehensive response to the brake defect crisis required unprecedented financial resources, as recall costs, victim compensation, legal settlements, and security improvements created the largest corporate expenditure in automotive industry history, while testing the company's financial resilience and strategic planning capabilities. Chief Financial Officer Patricia Kim presented detailed financial analysis to the board of directors that documented total crisis costs exceeding $25 billion, while projecting recovery timelines and strategic adjustments that would be required to maintain corporate viability and competitive positioning in global markets. The immediate recall costs have reached $14 billion for manufacturing and installing replacement brake components worldwide, Kim explained, while displaying comprehensive financial reports that tracked expenses across 37 countries and 400 authorized service centers that were working continuously to complete repairs. The recall logistics required establishing temporary service facilities, training thousands of technicians, and coordinating replacement part manufacturing that strained global supply chains while competing with normal production schedules and new vehicle development programs that supported long-term competitiveness and market share. Beyond direct recall expenses, victim compensation commitments totaled over $5 billion for unlimited medical coverage, lifetime support services, and financial assistance for families whose lives had been permanently altered by preventable accidents caused by criminal concealment of known safety defects. Legal settlements with regulatory agencies and consumer protection organizations added another $3 billion in penalties and compliance costs, while establishing oversight mechanisms that would prevent similar security breaches and ensure that foreign interference could not compromise automotive safety or manufacturing integrity. The enhanced security measures required to protect against future espionage and sabotage involved comprehensive employee background investigations, advanced cybersecurity systems, and international cooperation with law enforcement agencies that added $2 billion in annual operating expenses while providing essential protection for intellectual property and manufacturing operations. Stock market reactions to Morrison Automotive's crisis and recovery costs initially resulted in 43% decline in share value, while institutional investors and pension funds evaluated the company's long-term viability and competitive prospects following the most expensive recall in automotive history. Initial market reaction reflects uncertainty about our recovery timeline and competitive impact, Kim reported, while displaying trading data and analyst projections that showed gradual improvement in investor confidence as Morrison Automotive's comprehensive response and foreign interference evidence became widely understood. The gradual recovery of stock value reflected growing recognition that Morrison Automotive had been victimized by sophisticated foreign intelligence operations, while demonstrating exemplary corporate responsibility through unprecedented victim compensation and safety improvements that exceeded industry standards and regulatory requirements. International markets showed similar patterns of initial decline followed by recovery, as global investors understood that Morrison Automotive's crisis resulted from criminal conspiracy rather than corporate negligence, while the company's response demonstrated superior management capabilities and ethical leadership that distinguished it from competitors. The Federal Reserve and Treasury Department provided confidential support for Morrison Automotive's financial recovery through low-interest loans and emergency credit facilities that recognize the company's national security importance and strategic value for American automotive competitiveness and manufacturing leadership. Federal financial assistance reflects recognition that Morrison Automotive's survival is essential for American economic security and global automotive competitiveness, explained Treasury official Dr. Robert Martinez during confidential briefings about government support for strategic American manufacturers. The national security dimensions of Morrison Automotive's crisis generated bipartisan political support for financial assistance and regulatory reforms that would protect American automotive manufacturers from foreign interference, while ensuring that recalls and safety measures addressed legitimate defects rather than criminal sabotage. Congressional appropriations included funds for enhanced automotive security research and development, while establishing grant programs that would help American manufacturers improve cybersecurity and counterintelligence capabilities that protected intellectual property and manufacturing operations from foreign interference and domestic criminal activity. Morrison Automotive's cooperation with federal investigations while implementing comprehensive recalls and victim compensation demonstrated corporate citizenship and ethical leadership that influenced government support and regulatory favorability that helped offset crisis costs and competitive disadvantages. The company's commitment to unlimited victim compensation and enhanced safety measures generated positive media coverage and consumer support that accelerated recovery, while distinguishing Morrison Automotive from competitors who had handled recalls through minimal legal compliance and damage control strategies. Customer loyalty surveys showed that Morrison Automotive's transparent communication and comprehensive victim support had actually strengthened brand reputation and purchase intentions, while demonstrating that ethical crisis management could generate competitive advantages and market differentiation that offset financial costs. Customer satisfaction and loyalty ratings have increased significantly following our recall response, while purchase intentions for new Morrison vehicles exceed pre-crisis levels, reported Marketing Director Jennifer Walsh, while presenting consumer research that documented positive brand impact from ethical leadership and transparent communication. The counterintuitive improvement in brand perception reflected consumer appreciation for Morrison Automotive's acceptance of responsibility and comprehensive support for affected families, while contrast with typical corporate crisis management that prioritized legal protection over customer welfare and community support. International market recovery showed similar patterns as global consumers recognized Morrison Automotive's victimization by foreign interference, while supporting the company's ethical response and commitment to safety improvements that exceeded industry standards and regulatory requirements in all markets. The successful financial recovery from the largest automotive crisis in history established Morrison Automotive as a model for corporate responsibility and crisis management, while demonstrating that ethical leadership and customer focus could generate competitive advantages that offset temporary financial costs and market disruption. The Hart Senate Office Building's largest hearing room was packed with media representatives, automotive industry executives, and victim family members as James Morrison prepared to testify before the Senate Commerce Committee about foreign interference in American automotive manufacturing and the national security implications of industrial espionage targeting critical infrastructure sectors. Committee Chairman Senator Patricia Williams had requested James's testimony as part of comprehensive hearings about economic espionage and foreign interference with American manufacturing, while investigating legislative responses that would protect strategic industries from hostile intelligence operations and domestic criminal conspiracies. Mr. Morrison, your company's experience represents the most sophisticated example of foreign interference with American automotive manufacturing that our committee has investigated, Senator Williams announced, while opening hearings that would examine national security vulnerabilities and legislative remedies for protecting strategic American industries. James's prepared testimony documented the systematic nature of foreign intelligence operations, while explaining how Morrison Automotive's cooperation with federal investigations had revealed broader threats to American automotive competitiveness and manufacturing security that required comprehensive government response and industry-wide security improvements. Senators, Morrison Automotive's experience demonstrates that American manufacturers face coordinated foreign intelligence operations designed to damage our competitiveness while transferring our technological advantages to hostile nations that seek economic and military superiority through illegal means. James testified while presenting classified intelligence summaries that documented the scope of threats. The testimony revealed that Michael Chen's criminal activities were part of broader foreign intelligence operations targeting multiple American automotive manufacturers while recruiting insiders to provide technological intelligence and sabotage operations that served foreign government strategic objectives rather than simple economic espionage. Senator Robert Martinez of Texas questioned James about specific security measures that Morrison Automotive had implemented while exploring legislative requirements that could mandate enhanced security protocols for companies working with government contracts or possessing strategic technologies that foreign intelligence services might target. Mr. Morrison, what specific security improvements would you recommend for protecting American automotive manufacturers from similar foreign interference operations? Senator Martinez inquired while examining legislative proposals that would require enhanced background investigations and counterintelligence training for employees with access to sensitive technologies. James's recommendations included mandatory security clearances for senior engineering personnel, regular counterintelligence briefings for executives and managers, enhanced cybersecurity requirements for corporate communications and data storage, and expanded cooperation with federal law enforcement agencies for threat assessment and incident response. The legislative proposals that emerged from James's testimony included the American Manufacturing Security Act, which would establish comprehensive security standards for strategic industries while providing federal support for counterintelligence programs and enhanced cooperation between private companies and government security agencies. Senator Elizabeth Chen of California focused on victim compensation and corporate responsibility standards while exploring legislative mechanisms that would ensure adequate support for families affected by foreign interference and criminal sabotage of American manufacturing operations. Mr. Morrison, your company's victim compensation program exceeds legal requirements while demonstrating corporate responsibility that should serve as a model for other manufacturers, Senator Chen observed, while examining legislative standards that would require similar comprehensive support for victims of foreign interference and industrial sabotage. James's explanation of Morrison Automotive's compensation philosophy emphasized moral obligations that transcended legal requirements while acknowledging that corporate responsibility included protecting customers from criminal interference and foreign manipulation that endangered safety and security. The hearing testimony from victim family members provided emotional context for legislative deliberations, while demonstrating the human consequences of foreign interference and criminal sabotage that justified comprehensive government response and enhanced security requirements for strategic American industries. Amanda Williams testified about her daughter Jessica's death, while advocating for legislation that would prevent similar tragedies through enhanced security requirements and corporate accountability standards that prioritized customer safety over competitive considerations and financial calculations. Senators, my daughter died because foreign intelligence services recruited criminals to sabotage American automotive safety, while our government lacked adequate tools to detect and prevent such attacks on our economic security and public safety, Amanda testified while presenting Jessica's photograph and medical records. Her testimony generated bipartisan support for enhanced security legislation, while demonstrating the personal stakes involved in protecting American manufacturing from foreign interference and ensuring that corporate security measures adequately protected customers from criminal conspiracies and hostile intelligence operations. The committee's final report recommended comprehensive legislation that would strengthen American manufacturing security while providing resources for companies to implement enhanced counterintelligence measures and cooperation with federal law enforcement agencies that monitored foreign interference and economic espionage. Congressional passage of the American Manufacturing Security Act established Morrison Automotive's experience as a template for protecting strategic industries, while providing federal resources and regulatory frameworks that balanced security requirements with competitive innovation and economic growth objectives. The legislation included provisions for victim compensation, corporate accountability, enhanced security training, and expanded federal cooperation with private industry, while establishing Morrison Automotive as a model for corporate responsibility and security excellence that other manufacturers would be required to emulate. James's testimony and Morrison Automotive's cooperation with federal investigations generated recognition as a corporate leader in security and ethics, while establishing the company's reputation as a trusted partner for government contracts and strategic initiatives that required superior security and reliability standards. 2 years after the brake defect crisis and foreign interference revelations, Morrison Automotive had not only recovered from the financial devastation, but had emerged as the most trusted and secure automotive manufacturer in the world, with enhanced safety systems and security protocols that set new industry standards for protecting customers and national interests. The company's comprehensive response to the crisis had generated unprecedented customer loyalty and government support, while establishing Morrison Automotive as a symbol of American resilience and corporate responsibility that attracted global admiration and competitive advantage in international markets where security and reliability were paramount concerns. Sarah Morrison had been promoted to Chief Executive Officer, while James transitioned to Executive Chairman, reflecting the family's commitment to ethical leadership and technical excellence that had distinguished Morrison Automotive's crisis response, while preparing for future challenges and opportunities in rapidly evolving global automotive markets. Our experience with foreign interference and criminal sabotage has made Morrison Automotive stronger and more secure than ever before, Sarah announced during her first speech as CEO, while outlining strategic initiatives that leveraged enhanced security capabilities and customer trust for competitive advantage and market expansion. The enhanced security measures that Morrison Automotive had implemented exceeded government requirements, while establishing the company as a preferred partner for military and government contracts that required superior reliability and protection against foreign interference and criminal manipulation. Morrison Automotive's electric vehicle development had accelerated during the recovery period as enhanced security measures protected intellectual property, while customer trust and government support facilitated technology partnerships and market expansion that positioned the company for leadership in automotive electrification and autonomous vehicle development. The Victim Compensation Fund had distributed over $5 billion to affected families, while establishing permanent support services and medical coverage that demonstrated corporate commitment to customer welfare that transcended legal obligations and created lasting relationships between Morrison Automotive and communities worldwide. Jessica Williams Memorial Foundation, established with Amanda Williams' cooperation and Morrison Automotive support, had become a leading advocate for automotive safety and security, while providing scholarships for engineering students who committed to careers protecting public safety and American manufacturing from foreign interference. Jessica's death was not in vain if it leads to enhanced safety and security that protects other families from similar tragedies, Amanda Williams stated during the Foundation's annual conference while recognizing Morrison Automotive's ongoing support and commitment to preventing future crises through superior security and engineering excellence. The Memorial Foundation's work had influenced automotive safety standards worldwide, while generating research and development initiatives that improved manufacturing security and product quality across multiple industries that faced similar threats from foreign interference and criminal sabotage. Michael Chen's criminal trial and conviction had resulted in a 25-year federal prison sentence, while asset forfeiture proceedings distributed his illegally obtained wealth to victim compensation funds and security research programs that protected American manufacturing from similar future threats. The foreign intelligence operatives who had recruited Michael Chen were expelled from the United States, while international cooperation had disrupted similar operations targeting other American manufacturers, demonstrating that comprehensive security measures and law enforcement cooperation could effectively counter foreign interference and economic espionage. Morrison Automotive's stock price had recovered to record levels, while the company's market capitalization exceeded pre-crisis values, reflecting investor confidence in enhanced security measures and ethical leadership that provided competitive advantages and reduced risks compared to other automotive manufacturers. The Federal Bureau of Investigation had established Morrison Automotive as a model for private-public cooperation in counterintelligence, while the company's security innovations had been adopted by other strategic industries that faced similar threats from foreign interference and domestic criminal conspiracies. International automotive markets had embraced Morrison Automotive's enhanced security and safety standards, while global customers preferred vehicles that had been manufactured with superior protection against foreign interference and criminal manipulation that could compromise quality and safety. The European Union had adopted Morrison Automotive's security protocols as regulatory standards for automotive manufacturing, while Asian markets had similarly embraced enhanced security requirements that protected consumers and national interests from foreign manipulation and industrial espionage. Congressional recognition of Morrison Automotive's leadership in security and corporate responsibility had resulted in preferential treatment for government contracts, while establishing the company as a strategic national asset that received continued federal support and protection from foreign interference and competitive manipulation. The transformation of Morrison Automotive from crisis victim to industry leader in security and ethics had demonstrated that comprehensive crisis response and ethical leadership could generate competitive advantages while serving national interests and customer welfare through superior protection and accountability. James's personal transformation from CEO, facing the worst crisis in automotive history, to elder statesman and security expert, had established him as a respected voice for American manufacturing, while his family's fourth-generation leadership had been validated through ethical crisis management and customer-focused recovery strategies. Epilogue: The Legacy. 5 years after the brake defect crisis that had threatened to destroy Morrison Automotive and claimed innocent lives through criminal sabotage, the company had become a global symbol of corporate responsibility and American manufacturing excellence, while establishing new standards for security and ethics that protected customers and national interests. The Morrison family's fourth-generation leadership had been tested and validated through comprehensive crisis response that prioritized customer safety and national security over financial considerations and competitive positioning, while demonstrating that ethical leadership could generate sustainable competitive advantages and market success. Sarah Morrison's leadership as CEO had accelerated Morrison Automotive's technological innovation and market expansion while maintaining the enhanced security measures and ethical standards that had distinguished the company's crisis response and recovery from typical corporate damage control and legal minimization strategies. The victim compensation programs and memorial foundations that had emerged from the crisis continued to support affected families while advancing automotive safety research and security improvements that protected customers worldwide from similar threats and tragedies that could result from foreign interference and criminal sabotage. Jessica Williams Memorial Foundation had become a leading advocate for automotive safety and manufacturing security while providing educational opportunities for students who committed to careers protecting American industry and public safety from foreign threats and criminal manipulation. Amanda Williams had found purpose and healing through her advocacy work, while maintaining her relationship with Morrison Automotive as evidence that comprehensive corporate responsibility and victim support could create positive relationships, even following preventable tragedies and criminal betrayal. The legislative reforms that had resulted from Morrison Automotive's experience had strengthened American manufacturing security while providing resources and frameworks for protecting strategic industries from foreign interference and ensuring that corporate accountability standards prioritized customer safety and national interests. The American Manufacturing Security Act had been adopted by allied nations, while international cooperation in counterintelligence and manufacturing security had reduced threats from foreign interference and economic espionage that targeted strategic technologies and industrial capabilities. Michael Chen's imprisonment had served as a deterrent to other potential domestic conspirators, while his conviction and asset forfeiture had demonstrated that criminal betrayal of American interests would result in severe personal consequences and elimination of illegally obtained benefits. The broader impact of Morrison Automotive's crisis and recovery had influenced corporate governance standards throughout American industry, while demonstrating that ethical leadership and comprehensive crisis response could serve both business success and national interests through customer-focused accountability and security excellence. James Morrison's legacy had been transformed from potential corporate failure to exemplary crisis leadership, while his family's automotive dynasty had been strengthened through ethical decision-making and customer advocacy that honored 4 generations of American manufacturing innovation and social responsibility. The security cameras that had recorded James's agonizing decision-making process during the crisis had captured a defining moment of corporate leadership, while documenting the personal courage required to prioritize customer safety and national security over financial considerations and competitive positioning. Morrison Automotive's transformation from crisis victim to industry leader had proven that American manufacturing excellence and ethical leadership could overcome sophisticated foreign interference while serving customer welfare and national interests through superior security and accountability that distinguished democratic capitalism from authoritarian manipulation. The lasting lesson of Morrison Automotive's crisis was that individual courage and corporate responsibility could triumph over foreign interference and criminal betrayal, while establishing higher standards for American manufacturing and business leadership that protected customers and served national interests through ethical excellence and security innovation. Their story continued to inspire business leaders and government officials, while serving as proof that ethical decision-making and comprehensive crisis response could generate competitive advantages and national security benefits that far exceeded the temporary costs of accepting responsibility and prioritizing customer welfare over financial calculations. If this story touched you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and tell us in the comments what part resonated most with you. Until next time.